This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast, guys. This is Jenny. I am the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Rubberduck in the house, everybody. So we are going to have some good, fiery conversation with Rubberduck. If you know Rubberduck, he is very outspoken. He's got a lot of great information. He is a hoot, a very dear friend of mine, and I'm super excited to have him here on my podcast. He has been on my show one other time, and I'm trying to get him on to be a little bit more of a regular guest because his voice is definitely needs to be heard, and he has a lot of great information. So if you guys are not following Rubber Duck, please do give him a follow. I also have Miss Carmen in the house. She is our wonderful co-host this evening. So I want to welcome Carmen and Rubber Duck. How are you two?
Hey now.
Hey now. How you doing, Rubber Duck?
I'm doing good, ready to go. Hey Carmen, how you doing? Look at that. I get to sit between two beautiful ladies, a blonde and a brunette. I love it.
Aw.
Look at you. Good to see you, Duck. And Jenny, good to see everyone.
Good to see you, sweetie. Glad everything's good for you. Right, good for you today.
I
Um,
wonder if there's anything in the world that we could talk about. I mean, nothing's fucking happening. I'm so bored.
I know there's going to be a lot, but real quickly, everybody, for those of you that don't know who I am, and many of you do, you see me in the spaces, or whether I'm co-hosting or speaking, or really, I just kind of sit back and listen until something comes up, and I'm like, no, I'll chime in. You guys know that. But anyway, I am the owner and the host of the Revival of America. We are being listened to in over 100 countries, everybody. So we are making a lot of great positive noise. And I tell my audience all the time, if you're struggling to find out who to follow because you just don't know who to trust, I always say first and foremost, God. Secondly, keep it down to 1 to 3 people. I used to say 3 to 5 people, but now that we see some of these people that we thought were some maybe good podcasters or influencers, we're seeing them kind of turn the other side. We're going to see a lot more than that, more to that, guys. So please just be careful who you listen to, who you follow, and tighten up that circle, everybody. It's not about following all these people. It's about following the right people, getting the right information, the truth. That's what we're looking for, right? And at the end of the day, if you just really don't know, follow Donald Trump over on his Truth Social, because I'm telling you, everybody, he's telling us without directly telling us what is happening. And if you know how he speaks in the past, he's very cryptic, he's very coded, and he still is, because, he always says, we're never going to give our enemy our next move. But he is really kind of giving us a lot of crumbs to help us kind of through this crazy time. So, with that, everybody, I do want to let you know where you can find the podcast. Other than here on X. The podcast hosts are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, PocketCast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are Jenny Jareed Facebook, at Jenny_Jareed right here on X, at JJareed Rumble, at JJareed True Social, at JJareed Instagram, The Revival of America over on Telegram, where I do a lot of my live shows because I like the platform, and then also to The Revival of America over on YouTube. And what my podcast is about, everybody, it's not about my voice. It's about your voice. It's about my guest's voice. It's about your stories, your journeys. And when you come on to be a part of the audience with the guest, it's about your voice asking questions to my guest because your voice matters. You, as the audience members, want to know that myself and my guests are real people too, just like you. So I always try to integrate your voices within my podcast because I didn't do this podcast to be an echo chamber of everybody else. I did the podcast so everybody can have a voice and a platform to use it where you can be heard. My slogan is stand up, speak out, be heard. Because remember, your voices matter, everybody, and your truth is going to help shape this new world we're coming into. So I highly encourage all of you today here in my podcast and any podcast to raise your hand, ask your questions. We open that mic for you. If you are an agitator, if you know me, I don't deal with drama. I don't deal with bullshit. I'll get rid of it right away. I will remove you from my space. I'll remove you from
Oh,
my
I got a
channel.
co-host today.
And then I got Rubberduck. He's fine. He's a Spitfire. So with that, I'd like to welcome you guys, and we're gonna have some fun. So Rubberduck, I know you and I've been talking in the background. You know, the naysayers say there's nothing
I do
going
want to
on.
say something before we start. I do want to say something, and that is a very warm hello and welcome to the 3 followers that I have in Thailand. I mean, God bless you guys.
Well, hello, followers in Thailand. Well, you want to call them out by their name or no?
No, I just noticed it, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, I got and I have 2 from Kenya, man. That's pretty cool. So it's like we're all over the place because I read that as you were talking about 100 countries because I know how deep your reach is. You know what I mean, and especially when you get Field on, you must get people from like over Field used to be in over 150 countries.
Yeah, we get a
So
lot of people.
that's awesome, awesome, awesome. So yes. So I mean, well, I mean, did
So
we?
Rubber Duck, real quickly for
Okay,
the
go ahead, honey.
audience, because when you come into the spaces, we kind of talk all over the place, right? Because there's so much going on. We cover a lot of detail, but I would like the audience to get to know you a little bit better. So why don't you give the audience a little synopsis about you, how you came into this? You and I have shared that in the background and spoken several times about it, but and become great friends over it. But I would like the audience to know that you're not just this rubber duck that loves to come in here and just be a hoot in these spaces. And sometimes, you're that little pot stir, but I love it. It's in a good way, everybody. But tell everybody a little bit about you and how you became part of this movement.
Oh God. Well, I'll say I'm 50 now, and this has been, what's for me the in short, I'll just give you the short form. I'm a survivor and a witness. September 11th, I was on the 26th floor of One Liberty Plaza that morning, and most of the complex was in fact evacuated. That morning. I wasn't there when the first tower fell. We were brought over by a Circle Line ferry boat and survived it. The wildest thing for me was coming home that day, long story short, and realizing, because I was with my dad too that day, and we've not talked about it since either. Um, he got the shot too with my mom and got cancer from the shot. So that's another, you guys are all vested in this too. This is just my little part. But you get back on the Jersey side, and we got home that day, and everyone was talking about a plane that I didn't see, and that was pretty fucked up. So that, for me, set me out on a, what do you do when your reality is like penetrated with a scar? You know what I mean? So and we all lost our jobs and our livelihoods as a part of it. Let alone the people from over there. So we got the hell out of there, came down here to South Florida. I relocated the company I was with at the time, a large scale publishing company. And from like, my kids were in diapers at the time, so when that happened, that was, so anyway, so we came down here 2010, around 2010, 2009, 2010. That was the first time that I met Pam Bondi, and in addition, that was also during a time in my life. I was one of the very first 13 people that were affected by countrywide home loans and Bank of America. Doing the roto stamping and all that bullshit that became the housing crisis. So I drove home one day, and there was a Jamaican guy in a black Maserati, in my driveway, with a title, a deed to my house on his phone. And and I'm home with my kids, and my wife coming home from school, and it was just one of those things. Where do you go? So like anybody, I did what anyone else did. As soon as I got down here, you dive into whatever can numb it. You know what I mean? Because especially somebody like me who was always a critical thinker, you can't I can't fake it. Some people can. I give credit to lots of family members, especially during what we've all been going through recently over the 10 years. We've had to fake it till you make it, they say, especially when it comes to family, because family's everything, but it's tough. So it put a strain on everything, you know what I mean? And I could never, my family, my wife knew, my dad knew, my immediately family knew, but how do you talk to somebody who saw something on the TV? And up to that day, I would have believed it myself because I didn't believe that the TV did that shit either. That they could literally make something up. So when I got my shit together, came down here and suffered a hit with the housing crisis, and Pam Bondi bailed me out. My lawyer at the time was none other than Peter Tickton, which is also Trump's lawyer. Went to school with Trump. He's now a very close friend of mine. I do have him on speed dial, thank God, because
Isn't
he's.
he dealing with Tina Peters right now? Sorry, I had to put that in
Yes,
there.
yes, he is. He's done a
Okay.
couple of other things too. He's a massive, massive, massive Trump guy, and he went to West Point, or was it the Wharton School, or maybe both? I'm not sure. He also played ball with Trump and all that. And Tickton was a great guy. Everything fell apart for me. His law firm represented me. At the very end of it, we couldn't do any more, and I can't get into detail about the NDA that I had to sign, but by the grace of God and that man, I was able during the time, he was defending us, to take the money I would have otherwise put into a mortgage and put my two kids into a Christian school, which I did. And 2010, my younger son was diagnosed with JDRF, juvenile diabetes, all that bullshit. So we had to deal with that, and lots of other things that life is what happens, right? When you're making other plans. So a lot of the shit that happened with me, just some of the big things that have happened in my life have just been coincidentally, involved with like fucking bullshit headlines and, major deceptions. So I started getting my shit together after 2010, 2011, once I realized that we were going to be okay. And then, you blink your eye and 2015 comes around, and, Trump is, running for president. I'd always been a big fan, big fan of Trump. I attended a Tony Robbins, one of those Walk of Fire, the big fucking Tony Robbins things, that big bullshit. Well, you don't walk on hot coals, you heel toe it. You never put the base of your soul on the coals. You could do it in your fucking backyard. But anyway, it was at the old Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey, and Donald Trump was there. He was a speaker. I got to sit at a table and eat. It was like a brunchy thing, continental thing. And Barbara Walters was there. General Norman Schwarzkopf, and big company I was doing side work with at the time sent me there. And Trump, like I said, Trump was there, and Christopher Reeves and his wife were there. He had just fallen off the horse, and she had him in the wheelchair, and just like it's one of those things, pump it up, everybody fucking yelling like demons, and they were probably casting spells looking back. But anyway, that was my first time, and I was really looking forward to seeing him. Because I was from up there, originally from West Virginia down south. That's another space. But my formative years were spent up in northern New Jersey, and that's and so Trump was always on page 6. Everybody knew Trump. You can go out in New York City and be in the right place at the right time and have a Donald Trump sighting. He's all over the place. My dad was a huge, big time construction worker in New York City. His company was the company that finished Tower Number Two, the Windows of the World, which was the restaurant that took up the top two floors. His company, PCC, they actually finished that job. That was like the last part that was finished, I believe, 73. I could be wrong. World Trade Center. So again, another one of those life connections. So, so then again, you blink your eyes and, Trump's running for president and, I'm all behind him. MAGA, 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 all the way. I came to see him. His first ever rally was down here in Boca. Went down to see that. I got to meet a bunch of, that's when I first learned about LARPs and I learned about paid protesters because I met them all there. And I walked right into the middle of them, and just made friends with them.
Go
I just,
figure.
yeah, no, but honestly, no joke. Again, it's like you come into these spaces. It's called read the room, and it depends if you really want to get in there, if you want to mix it up, and I do that. I've done that my whole life. But in high school, I was a blast. We would have had fun. But that being said, so you talk to these people, and it's a lifestyle. And I had some screwball family members, fourth cousins in fucking West Virginia that were carnival operators, legit. They're called carnies. And it's a certain lifestyle. It's like people that build railroads underground and people that used to build the big steel buildings, the infrastructures. Those are special fucking people. The long linesmen, longshoremen. They're like a little society type of thing. So anyway, so not to get too distracted. So I was always, as far as on the social media, Facebook, all the usual stuff, and that's kind of where I learned about social media and stuff. I'd always done graphic design and marketing and stuff like that. And at the time, I was working as a aerospace and defense analyst, and with contract work and stuff like that. So I had access to SAM, System for Awards Management. I had my own cage code, and I was able to actually research, government contracts and stuff. Which at the time, in the beginning, when Q, first came out, was kind of interesting because I was able to actually look at some of the stuff, some of the different contracts and stuff and I still have a couple of friends in that industry. That kind of information is always good to have because many people don't know that that's where these protesters, these trade protesters that you see all over the television, and even sometimes in real life, if you live near wherever they do the, they shoot the videos or whatever it is that they do when they're agitating, they're always the way they secure those. They're actually for sale. They're contracts that they sell. They actually sell them as contract work. I forget what category it's a bullshit category, entertainment, I think it is, or crowd control, or some bullshit thing is they categorize. That's where they hide it. They categorize it, and then you get all these people that bid on these contracts, and these are people like all over the country that have little, subcontract workers, and it's like, 30, 40, $50,000 job. Picture a bunch of contract guys going and building something. They just want a contract or they're going to build a plane. These people do the same thing. They build these organizations. They build these protesters. They're allowed a certain amount of funding. They use them to, make their signs and to get rides. That's all the buses that you see with no brands on them. So we could talk about that later. So, but anyway, so that's me. Q Clearance Patriot came out on 4chan. We were all on 4chan. As far as the crazy ones, were concerned when Q came around, and once Q started posting along with Trump, doing the confirmations and the deltas in real time, I, along with everyone else, got wrapped up into the whole thing. And that was a weird way of life. If you dedicate, I'm talking about the people that became Anons before 2021, the purge before January 6th. There's two types of Anons. There's ones, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's either you were an Anon before January 6th or one after. Two very different distinctions and two very different types of infiltrators, by the way, for the early Anons and also the other ones. So it's just a distinction because it goes to how we understand and explain things. You get to the same place, but some people take a different route. So that's me.
Well, I love that about you, Rubber Duck, and I love the fact that you get right in there and you just go for it. So, yeah, I
I'm only here
appreciate
for
you.
one reason, right? I'm not here. I didn't start doing this. I took the oath, just like thousands of other add-ons did, right? We all got the videos, so we all did this for a reason. You know what I mean? My wife has run a preschool now for over 20 years down here in Florida, in Lake Worth, and I have seen firsthand. What happens to not just children. I'm talking about toddlers and infants, the really, really bad. I've been there when those phone calls, have been made and when people have been picked up and when you see just different sides of it, the parent side, the family side. And I'm talking over 20 years, and the rage, I'm Sicilian. So it's like the rage is like, you know what I mean? It's like, and my English roots, and European roots go back to, Wallace blood, the Wallace clan, William Wallace, actually, that character. Believe it or not, he was a real guy. So when I rage, I don't rage to get mad over bullshit stuff. I rage to try to, do something about it. And once I realized that once you get to a point, once I got to a point early on when I realized, and together with the other folks that were doing the Q drops and stuff like that, you know, once we realized that what they were telling us early on, 20, what did it start? October 2017. And I think, through November, that's all the early drops were. It was only for like a month and a half on 4chan, and then it got infiltrated. They moved on to 8chan, but those early drops, which is most of what's playing out today, you don't need, there wasn't much decoding early on, because if you ever go through them, or a couple of them, which I highly suggest everybody should at some point, just look at them. It's just words. They're nouns and verbs. Nothing scary. There's no spells, nothing. It's all straightforward. And it's the curiosity when you look at them that makes you want to go, look at some of the stuff associated with it anyway. It's not scary. It's just truth, and some of the truth is scary. But once you get past that, it becomes like an obsession, then you look at things, as they truly should be, which is a 100% lie. If it comes from the TV, and if the TV can't prove to you that what you're watching is real, like 3D in my backyard real, then either you can't believe it, or B, you can't care about it. We're not built to do the 24/7 deal. So anyway, so rolling in with the Q drops, there was no other experience that I could describe. When they used to, because we all had the alerts and stuff. So you get an alert, and we'd all run to whatever Q aggregate board, or we'd go to the chans and whatever and see what was happening. And we would essentially do what is become now part of what we do sometimes when we get on these spaces, and we start working out, not all the time Q drops, but we work out real world problems. Don't forget the Q drops are playing out on the television now. And what are we doing? We're here working out these real world headlines to discern whether, it's bullshit, how much should we care about it, how much of it is gaslighting, how much of it is truth, because there's truth in every line of shit, just like the broken clock is right twice a day. Sometimes I listen to assholes that I fucking hate just to see if they're going to say something truthful, so I could take that one truth and extrapolate on it the way I would. You know what I mean? Leading with that, That's why whenever you read news stories and articles on the internet, you would be much better, and you won't believe it until you try it. You would be much better served reading any online article, starting with the very last paragraph and working your way to the beginning. You'll get more facts, and you will not need to read more than a third of the article. All of the facts, links, and data are at the very bottom of it. We're adults. You don't need someone to tell you the story. And if you read any of them, most of it's AI. Who knows for how long anyway, right? So, yeah. So I'm waiting for Trump to show up in Davos to teabag, the entire stage yet again. And I think it'll be glorious. I can't wait to see what he's going to say. But
So
I
does
do
it?
I do believe he's showing up. He's not showing up. He's going to do his deals. Make no mistake. He's going to be, the TV's go, oh, he's doing deals. He's doing this. There'll be the usual protesters. There'll be whatever the expectation is of this Davos thing that everyone sees every year. You're going to see and hear the same thing. You might see and hear some capitulation here and there, and I would pay attention to that. But the overarching reason for Trump being there is for him to tell them This is what's going to happen. This is who's going to control the world. It's already done. If you're on board, here's your folder. And that's it. That's the deal.
Yep.
At this point,
Their
there's
surrender.
no. Yeah, exactly. And that's what Jenny said earlier, which was, either they will have to give their surrender in whatever way publicly, because that's going to be remember, we're all about reversing the rituals now, reversing the energy, so the same way our politicians and every fucking one in society at large, you know what I mean? They used to do their rituals to gather their energy for their control. We have to flip off that negative energy by doing certain things on certain dates and doing things in certain ways. You know what I mean? Like doing the same ritual on them. Lots of people don't understand that the whole YMCA and the whole Trump dance is a ritual. It's a ritual because we all know the first YMCA came from Jenny Gitmo, Guantanamo
Oh yeah,
Bay.
yeah. I'm sorry. I thought
No, 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 no. It's
yes.
it's it's it. You're right. It is. But that being said, so that's the whole. That's the mock. Remember, this is a spiritual battle. We don't see it now because it's still in the headlines and on the TV and all that stuff. But there'll come a point to this where you'll start to understand. You know, you'll once you understand not just what these people did and how they did it, but when you understand the reason why, how they serve their master, and when you understand that, given the evil deeds that they do are useless unless they could mock it. You know what I mean? It's like when you shoot somebody in the head and then you spit on them and walk away. You don't need to do that. You know what I mean? So, because that's inhumane. Shooting somebody in the head is inhumane. But what I'm saying is it's a different kind of murder is murder. What these people do leading up to and as a result of, they consider murder art. They consider the planning of murder to be art. The more the merrier. You know what I mean? Because that's their thing. They're already bought into that. There's too many of us. You know what I mean? They believe we're the disease, they're the cure. The whole NWO thing, the whole globalist thing. It was all real, no mistake. And the only thing, the world changing event that the history books will talk about will be when Hillary Clinton lost, because that was not supposed to happen. That was not supposed to have whatever biblical plans that they had laid out for us, because they also had a nothing can stop what's coming too. Their plans were set in stone where they could not stop it, right? So when we say nothing can stop what's coming, that's exactly true. But from our perspective, when we say nothing can stop what's coming, it's because we already know what your plans are, and we know that you can't do anything about them to change them right now because your kill switch you pulled off years ago. But we know what we can do to stop it. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why that became such a big, big deal. And that's why the last 10 years, we've kind of been walking around in this fucking limbo gray area, like I know we all are, like what's for real, what's for sale, what is it, a psyop? Is there a script? Is it a movie? Who's lying? I start with everything the TV says is fake or a lie unless I can prove it. And if I can't prove it, then I'm like, what the fuck do I care? Charlie Kirk, yeah, whatever. It's like, don't for what? If it's going to mean something, it'll mean something at some point. Right now, they're just trying to rouse up and gaslight both sides to see, what it is they're going to stick with. Part of this whole thing, guys, is we all have to recognize psyops. I wish they'd find a different word, for it, but it is what it is, and we're not going to be the ones that are going to decide to stop it ourselves, because we're wrapped up in it, willingly or unwillingly doing it ourselves, by countering the narrative. So, and I'm not gonna stop, you know what I mean? And they tried to stop us all before. They were successful. Could they do it again? I don't believe so, because I don't believe they have control of the flip switch. It's not Jack anymore, it's Elon. So we're in the part right now where it's anything can happen at any time. You got the Insurrection Act on one hand, you got fucking Trump overseas, which I hate when he's overseas or he's on his way overseas. You know what I mean? Because everyone's waiting for the precipice event. when there might not really be some sort of a World War III earthquake tidal wave like everyone's thinking about. Have you not forgotten that the earth was shut down for a year or two? Have you not forgotten all the ridiculous fucking destructive weather we've had over the past 10 years? So I think we've all had a precipice in a personal way anyway, coming to face the fact that, we were all lied to, willfully at the top, unwillingly, everything below that. And once you realize that, it's not your physical brain that's a clean slate you have to start with. It's more the emotional part, and if you're one of those types of people that you can get over it quickly, then you're going to be okay. You'll do just fine. I wasn't one of them. My awakening was, it was very, very, because the rage, and I'm not the only one. There's lots of you guys out there get filled up with that. It's difficult sometimes. And when I come on this app and try to do my thing, and I see other people, farting around about, to me, sometimes it's like anything other than the children or whatever's going to lead to the children, and, fuck off. Sometimes I'm like that, but I also know that we're all here to bring and serve our information to help, and then it's up to whoever consumes it next. You know what I mean? Whether they're going to tell two friends and tell two friends, because that's the mission. That's why I'm here. And hopefully when we all get to this, wherever it is that the next step, right? What happens after this, then either we'll be together, we'll keep in touch, we'll be friends, and we'll be able to go on and live our lives again, in whatever form that's going to look like. Who knows?
I agree with you,
I told
Rubberduck.
you I would rant. I
Oh
apologized
no.
up front.
Hey, listen, that's what makes my podcast different. Is it's not about my voice, it's about your voice, and then integrating the audience with it, because they want to feel heard as well. So Rubber Duck, so we talk a lot about things aren't always as they seem, the precipice. Things have already A lot of this stuff has happened behind the scenes. They have all these sealed indictments, and people can't think that they were just open 20 minutes ago for over 500,000 indictments that include up to 99 people, one indictment. So we know that a lot of things have been going on behind the scenes. Can you maybe talk to, because I know a lot of people get a little bit confused and can't wrap their mind around about you're watching a movie, like Wag the Dog, right? I always tell my audience, if you're confused what we mean about, listen, what we're watching a movie, or when you hear people say grab the popcorn, i.e. Trump, he does it a lot.
Well, that
Explain to
that's a
me,
tough one. I mean, that's tough
well,
because
from your
it's
perspective,
you
because
have to
people
suspend you have to be able to suspend your reality. And what I mean is not like it doesn't represent.
and emotions.
Well, that goes with it. If you're able to temporarily suspend your reality, right? It's no different than praying, right? What are you doing when you're praying? You're communicating with God, you're communicating with Jesus, whoever it is that you pray to, right? You're in spiritual communication with them. That's energy. You know what I mean? So I lost my train of thought. Bring me back real quick.
So explain from your perspective, like when we tell people this has already been done,
Yes, that
you're
okay.
watching a
So you have
movie.
to be able to temporarily, suspend your reality. So when I say doing that, it's not a scary thing, and that's why I say with regards to the television and the internet and anything that's like digital, electronic, entertainment related. If you're able to think of everything associated with that as being part of one big, let's use a big fake word, as like one big globalist narrative, like an overarching story that includes everything. Like Star Wars. Star Wars has its own merchandise, it has its own fucking everything, everything Star Wars. You go to Disney, everything. So you think of it as like one big, overarching reality that they've put over us. You know what I mean? And includes everything. It includes sports. It includes, we learned during the COVID. The part of it is the medical industry. And when I say how do you compare that? Because they're all in on it. You know what I mean? I try not to get wrapped up so much in who's good and who's bad. I just know I rest with my confidence in knowing that I know the difference between good and evil. If there's anything that's binary, these people love their binary words. If there's anything that's binary, it's the difference between good and evil, right? Like man, woman, and that's it. That's the end of it. When you start going beyond that, then it becomes it's just not worth it. So that's why, and also it helps you to keep everything in its simplest forms. If you buy a little, if anything that makes you too emotional, there's a good chance that you're being manipulated, you know, and it could be in a variety of forms. You know what I mean? It could be that your feed is loaded with and we all know about all of the, AI and all of the technology that they've used on us over, God, who knows how many years to, survey us, but not just so much about surveillance. I'm coming to understand myself too that AI may very well have likely been around a lot longer than us. So, they know a lot about us, and they learn about us, so I personally think that if they know the people that I believe are in charge right now, I don't believe it's bad people, bad guys. Trump's in charge. I believe he's always been. But I believe that the apparatus that they use to enslave us, right, which is mostly surveillance, right? Because if you want to be able to do anything wrong, you have to know where everybody is, right? Because you're not going to go in and blow up everything. You want to go in under the sea. You want to go in the air. That's why trafficking.
Strategic.
Exactly. Right. So now you have good guys. Let's call them, I don't want to use white hats. Let's say good guys, whoever won this war, which we know who it is. And they took over the same apparatus. Right. And they did this with AI. And you know that they did, so that they can kind of learn, like if they were using keywords against us to see, where the people were that really hated them, so that they can fucking invade our lives, which they that's what they did. You know what I mean? Look at what happened with the IRS before Trump first came in, what Obama did. He would stick the IRS on people. They were only able to do that through surveillance, right? And that's how they do it, though, guys. All the worldly problems that we have that we think are just regular occurring problems, many times are not, in fact, our problems. There's people in here, that have been targeted. And targeting is something real. Sometimes it's not just on an individual basis. Sometimes they can target groups in areas. And when you now start to see, which is being shown to us, all of these actors that are out on the street, and you see that the television is capturing nothing but the actors, then you have to ask yourself, well, then what's real? And when you get to that point, when you start to question, am I seeing is that really happening? Like this guy, the Minnesota mayor, is that a real guy? Like, is he real? Like, I know he's probably a real guy, but is he really a mayor? Because he looks like some sort of fucking, like, some sort of goof they picked off the street to, give lines to and act like a mayor because he had good hair or some shit like that. Like, is that a real dude? Is that a real guy? Those are the kind of questions that I ask, because who's taking these people seriously? Who's taking anything that's happening on television so seriously? Like, every day is a world ending headline. I mean, we're seeing shit happen nowadays. The television is talking about pedophilia. They're talking about war. The United States is going to, like, we just took Venezuela. We send the fucking Delta Force. I mean, can you imagine being a kid, anyone in here over the age of 30? Can you imagine being in high school, and getting these fucking updates on your phone, or mom and dad's call? Yeah, we just took Madero out. And you're like, what? That would be like a 1 year headline. They'd be talking about that on the Sunday shows forever. It would be something that would be, but that's just another log in the fire with this, and every single day it seems to be different, and it seems to be something new. And it doesn't make sense to people that never spent any time looking at any of the Q drops, and I understand that. But when I say that the Q drops, at least early in the beginning, from 2017, the 4chan drops, those alone, are starting, and they have been since Trump came in. And it's all about setting up, putting the structure in place to do whatever he wants and needs to do on the global stage. And make no mistake, Trump's not doing this for his ego, right? The guy's got a massive ego. Everybody gets it, right? First of all, you got to have a personality like that to do what he's doing. And then when you consider another part of it, whereas he is actually one of the actors too. He has, the only thing about Trump that I firmly believe is I don't believe he has a script. I believe he was given an outline so that he can do and say what he wanted. And maybe that was part of what brought him, when they initially recruited him. So That's why when Jenny says, when in doubt, pay attention to Trump, I mean, that's not like a that's not like a that's not like a slogan. That's legit. I mean, you can literally, if you pay attention to Trump, and when he kind of talks weird and funny, you have to admit there's nobody that you've ever listened to in your life, public speaker, famous person, whatever. You've never met anybody that ever communicates like Trump does. And sometimes it could sound like he's out of it or lost, and he talks about it, I do a little weave and bada boo, and that, that's a way of communicating with people. That's an art, that's called communicating in streams of consciousness. And not everybody can learn how to do that. Some people have, some people are just blessed that you can do that. So when Trump communicates with people, he's up there at a podium, he's talking directly to the camera. So he's talking to the audience that he's standing in front of, right? He's speaking to Earth through the camera, right? Then there's operators out in the field because he's the commander in chief, and this is how they communicate, right? So he's putting out comms or communications to them, and he's also communicating to anons because we're the only direct connection between him, what the drops were, what they meant, and everybody else. Like there's nothing, and the only way those numbers would ever change is if the more people that we were able to aggregate our information in front of, those people would get involved and learn a little bit of what's happening themselves. You know what I mean? It's not that they would be on our side. You know what I mean? They would at least have their own emotional structure in place, to hop online with this, because there's two realities happening right now. There's the TV movie, quote unquote, right? Which is what the TV is broadcasting. Okay. And then there's the reality, which is us going to work every day. And it's like two different realities. The thing is what's happening on the television broadcast, that is what will become history. You know what I mean? Because, it's like if a tree falls in the woods, no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a noise. We live in it, for good or bad, and we live in a world where if it's not broadcast on the television with any degree of authority, right, or credibility, then it never happened. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't, it's like, if you work for a company and you have to take notes and it's mandatory and they tell you, hey, listen, if I don't see it here, it never happened. Well, that's the way the TV is. We have the internet now, but make no mistake, the internet is by far, it is powerful. And I know that the signal, but as far as the message, it's always the television. You know what I mean? And I believe that the internet is what gave folks like us enough, how do you want to call it, horsepower that they made available to us, where we were able to challenge the narrative and just get people to a point of willful curiosity. If not for any reason that some of the shit we were talking about was sounded so crazy at the time. Now they don't even
So
call you crazy. Either you're a Q-tard or they're a black pillar. There's really no, there's not much in between anymore.
So let's talk about that for a minute, and then we'll go into some questions that people may have to you guys. So if you guys want to request a mic, please feel free, and we will unmute your mic. Now remember, if you guys are a troll or an agitator, we'll see you right away, and we'll get you out of here. So don't try to come up and cause drama, because I don't deal with drama. But okay, so let's talk about this. So we see a lot of these things out there too, Duck. And we always say, many of us say, I know I do to my audience, things aren't always as they seem. So a lot of the things that we may be seeing may not always be as they appear. We know we have seen videos, pictures, and stuff like that that have occurred a while ago, but they're now resurfacing as if it happened yesterday or 20 minutes ago. So can you touch on that a little bit, and
I
then
think there's
everybody?
value in that. I do. I think there's value in seeing
I
something.
agree.
I believe there's value in, even if we even I- even if, listen, not everyone's going to wake up. You know what I mean? Some of us believe that 4 to 6% of the U.S. population will be gone forever, which means that they'll never be able to emotionally wrap their heads around anything like this. So there'll come a point where they'll have to challenge themselves, and that, I believe, is what the TV will be used for, to bring as many people, because the idea of this thing is the truth. And there won't be one friggin' arrest until enough people will believe and understand it, because you can't afford to have 75 million people say, "Oh, that's just what they said on TV." So whatever form of this is what I'm waiting for, is I want to see it in a way where I say, okay, I believe it. And what Jenny said before about, we've seen the videos, we have the links, the government, we have all the data, we have all the source, we have all the information and backup and receipts for what it is that we talk about. And we do, and we bring them, but at the same point, who 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 who's in charge of deciding what's true anymore? There's no, because again, what I just said, it used to be, if it was the TV said it, that's it. If mom and dad said it, that's it. If I learned it in school, that's it. It's If I learned it in college, that's it. The company trained me, that's it. Go on, whatever. My degree, that's it. Saw it on the internet, that's it. Right? That's not it. You know what I mean? So who's to decide what's true, what's fact? So truth and fact, sometimes they're not mutually exclusive. It's like, because if you're not willing to look at new evidence or new ideas, and update, whatever you believe, truth, I believe, is more of a belief. It's more of a feeling. You know what I mean? Did Jesus Christ walk the earth? Yes, he did. Well, how can you say with such authority? Because I believe it. Argument ends. Well, what about that? No, I don't care. Fuck off. That's it. Well, what about God? Son of a, yeah, yep, that's it. He's God. That's it. Because that's what I believe. Well, that's what many of us had to do, and many people are starting to make sense of now, is that you kind of got to figure it out for yourself, and so that includes, like, even some of the aggregate information that we put together and put out. We didn't get everything right, and even the shit that we got right was like way less than 10% of what the hell was going on anyway. And we didn't even realize back then, early on, that what they were telling us was stuff that had already happened at that point. Like, we were going through it as if it was something that they were going through, but the hot kinetic global war that actually happened, under earth and in the air and all the weird shit, there was a real fucking World War III that happened big time. And we'll find out about it, whatever version they're going to give to us. But, that shit really happened. But we thought that, like, we didn't really know. We just knew that we had all this information, and we didn't know what would really move it forward. And to be quite frank with you, it wasn't probably until the 8chan drops started coming that we really started to understand, what direction it was involved with, because they were Insurrection Act was talked about, I believe, before the second week of November in 2017. We already knew, because, it was like, what needs to be in place? What can be enacted? Who controls the National Guard? Can the National Guard work in conjunction with the Marines? What must be in place in order for that to happen? What posse comitatus? What happens? How can you get rid of that? Not how do you get rid of that, but like all these questions that, like, you want to call it decoding, you can, but that was like a drop. So all we literally did was copy the question, put it into Google, and found a credible government link, and then we'd make memes out of it. So that's literally what we did. So that's literally what the Q drops were. There was no, like, made up shit. They didn't drop anything that would have led us to whatever they were doing, in spite of what we, or myself, may have thought going back at the time.
Thank you,
But the
Robert.
point of the story is, it's not just it's not just believe anything you hear and everything that you see. If anything, I would say believe none of what you see, and much less than half of what you hear, because you don't need to care about that much. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying abandon Twitter, abandon this and that, but I mean, not for nothing. Let's be real with each other. It's these flat black screens that have fucking broken our lives and kept us away from our own family members, probably as we speak. I mean, I'm here on a mission. You know what I mean? The mission's moving forward. We all are. But so for me, it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make for my country, for humanity, for God, for Jesus, for what I believe in, for my kids, right? Because that's how I sleep at night. You know what I mean? But other people are here for different reasons. So I get it, but when it comes to using what you see and hear on a flat black screen to make informed decisions in your life, I believe that's a little bit risky. You're much better, you're much better off taking some time and trying to think about things that really matter, You know what I mean? And instead of getting involved in volleys, and listen, I love debating. I love gaslighting the other side because they deserve it, right? And the people that come in here and disrupt us having a nice conversation like this, it's a different story. I see them as enemy. They must be destroyed. So I snipe them, and that's, but realistically, we should all just be, able to sit here and have a conversation about it. But that's not everybody's focus and goal because, you know, the way this war was fought, very few bullets, if any, within the United States. Most of it has been the information war, And so when it comes to looking at, analyzing and consuming data, whether it's watching videos or live streams, God, Jenny, how many live streams did we watch during the lockdowns? The White House, I mean, there's some shit, guys. I mean, if we didn't see it,
Yeah.
document it, and aggregate it, nobody would have known because we didn't believe it. It's like one of those things where you could tell there must have been 100,000 people on the same fucking, because we used to crash it all the time, and we're all telling each other like nobody would believe us if we told them, and we always approach things with that mindset, which is why we're so obsessed with screenshots and putting memes together and video documentaries, anything. You know what I mean? I don't consider that content. That's just our random thoughts put together based on what we learn. You know what I mean? That's why to this day I'm continuing to learn about everything. Like I said, they didn't tell us much at all, and they didn't tell us anything. The just the winks and the nods and the direction that the Q team pointed us in was less than 10% of the big picture. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
that's
Amen.
that's that.
All right, everybody. So we're gonna go into some questions. So if you guys have a question for Rubber Duck or myself or any of the guests up here, I'm gonna go to Carmen, see if she wants to respond to any of that. And Dr. James, how are you, my friend? You as
Doing great.
well. And then we'll go to Reg. So Carmen, go ahead, my friend. Do you want to say anything while Rubber Duck is taking a breath and a sip of water?
Well, I
Was
mean,
I on? Was I live? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just fucking with you. You know I'm teasing.
nah, man, I love when Rubber Duck goes. I mean, he goes right, like ready, set, go. But
And
like
he's got spot on info, so
he really
he's easy to
does.
listen to.
Really does. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting back here and I was just like relaxed, and then I was like, oh, no, no, and let me get to the mic. But nah, I don't have any questions. I always just take in what Rubber Duck, he just goes and he's got the information. Make sure I take notes and so I can go back and reference them. So I just appreciate everything you share and you continue to put out for us, Rubber Duck. I have a lot of respect for you, and that's really it. Thanks.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you, darling.
Once,
By the way, disclaimer, there's not a thing that you'll ever hear me say about anything that up to this point I've spoken about that you can't find in my feed. Just grab a keyword, put it in the search on my page, and you'll find whatever you need there, I promise.
yeah, and that is very very true, everybody. So, like I said, if you haven't given Rubber Duck a follow, and you want some truths with some fire to it and some comedy, Rubber Duck is it. So, also to everybody, if you could repost this space, go down to the Purple Pill and repost it. Like, share it. Carmen always says bookmark it. I don't do a lot of spaces, but when I do, I like to get you guys to be able to kind of participate. So I'd like to say hi to MV and Turtle and Adam down there. So, and if you guys do have a question, you request a mic, please raise your hand so I know that you have a question. You've not just requested the mic, but you have a question for Rubber Duck. So, Dr. James, do you want to say anything to Rubber Duck while you're up here? Or,
Hey, Doc, how you?
Sure. Hey, bro, how you doing? We
Hey,
still
Doc.
haven't gotten that coffee yet, man, but we're gonna have to do that here really soon.
Oh, I'm working on a
Um,
quad shot right now, brother. Oh boy.
Nice, nice. I hope the houses start moving for you. Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about tonight, is it? Hey, you hit some great points. One of the things, actually, wifey's listening, she pointed out too, some neighbors, and it made me think about other people too. They're all so remember, like when we were growing up, it was the TV, we didn't have the internet. So it was what they told us. Like you said, they told us this, so that's it. That's the truth. That's what it is. Boom, 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 boom. And so here we are, like 40, 50, 60 years later, whatever. And we have the internet and we have social media and we can talk about all these things and we have access to information that no one ever had before and yada yada. But we do. Okay, so there's a lot of people like that live here in these mountains, I know, that only have the TV still. They don't do internet. They wouldn't do social media if they had it. If they do have some type of internet, they use it for Google or whatever, but it's not for that stuff. It's for recipes or Facebook for talking to their grandchildren or whatever it is. And then that's one category. And then there's another category that's like the real ultra redneck, like we got up here, that are like, they don't need no internet, because everything they do involves nature and outside and working on cars and whatever. And all they have is the TV. Okay. So there are a lot of people around in this country that the only message they're getting is what the major media outlets are pushing. So, yeah, I don't know how you reach those people really without mainstream media either being turned over, being shut down, having the 10 days of darkness, emergency broadcast break in, something. But I think there's a lot of people that aren't going to be gotten to easily. And so I see that as a big problem.
I agree. I also, I personally, I mean, just my opinion. Before we get to that point where I said, we no humanity will not be able to move forward past whatever is happening or whatever is going to happen, unless, unless unless we could trust whatever signal is coming out of the television. And when I say trust, I mean that I'm not talking 100% justice for those who we know. I'm talking about I'm talking about thinking none of us trust the TV. I just told you guys, don't trust the TV. None of us. Okay, so maybe this doesn't apply to a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like if you feel like you kind of have an idea what's happening, you kind of smell a rat. If you're one of those people where, maybe you don't subscribe to all the conspiracy theories and stuff, I don't blame you. But if you at least believe that whoever was in the White House, from 2020 to 2024 was not the person that we remember, and I'm 50, who Joe Biden was. Well, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't know if it's a fucking guy with a mask or a clone or doppelganger or fucking Jim Carrey, and it doesn't matter. What matters is if we can all agree on that, that's a pretty big fucking deal, right? So that leads people to look a little bit deeper, So, once people get to a point where they can accept that, then I think it's up to the television from this point forward, whether it's Trump speaking on it or whether it's honest reports from the field or whether, but it can't be stories told to us about what happened. In other words, I'm not going to trust Pam Bondi. I'm not saying I don't trust her. I don't know her. I mean, I met her once. She, together with other people, helped me out of a jam. But for the role that she's playing here, I don't trust anyone but Trump. But that said, I don't have any expectations of Pam Bondi saying, all right, this is it, this is who we've arrested, this is, and giving a list of people. I never had an expectation of an Epstein file. There is no Epstein file. You know what I mean? That's like fucking Kaiser Soze and the usual suspects. That's what Epstein is. One of many. Somebody and nobody, a ghost. That's all he was. That's all he is. It's what he represents. That's the problem. It's what that island represents. That's the problem. It's what happened on that island. It's what happened inside that fucking temple and in the many layers of earth beneath that temple.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Right? Because you have to ask yourself, because Q asked us, what happens in a temple? Do your research, right? Look at my feed, whatever. Only one thing happens in a temple, those kinds of temples, especially with a gold dome. And we're talking about not people that you and I know. We're talking people that make up this television signal that we're all talking about whether we should believe or not. And they own every fucking company associated with it. And we all know how they are. The tentacles extended way, way past the state and local levels. We all know that whoever they are certainly commandeered the entire, free Masonic network, so you can't trust any of them. It's a shame. Same thing with Catholics. Same thing with Jews. Everybody got their nose rubbed in shit, and that's the way it is. And if they haven't gotten their nose rubbed in shit yet, publicly, they will. You know, well, how they do it with the Catholics? How do they do it? By putting fucking Donald Trump as the fucking Pope, dressed in gold. He chose the Pope. What kind of power do you think you can have where you can have the Pope under your thumb? You'll never hear Trump say that. I'm saying it because that's what happened. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you could take anyone else, every other leader. You could say they've been changed out, they're clones, or whatever. That's fine. Go along with that. Many people are different. You know, I'm starting to think that part of the technology that these people had certainly must have been about life extension, and you know what I mean. Hearing other people talk. I don't know if MV's in here, but you go all the way back to the fucking Anunnaki in biblical times, and people were living 100 years, 150, 200 years, 800 years,
Yep.
whatever, because probably, you know why? Because they didn't have fucking airplanes spraying shit on them, on
and,
everything.
and they didn't have all the freaking the drugs that they're giving us, the ones that
Nothing,
don't get
nothing.
to keep
So,
us on the hamster wheel, right?
so part of this
Plastic
whole,
All
food.
right, so we've got hands here, Rubber Duck.
go ahead, hon.
How you doing on time?
Where's my, we're good. I'll let you know.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, Dr. James, I'm sorry. Did you want to respond or say something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying plastic food.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank
exactly,
you.
right. All right, go ahead, Mr. Reg. Your mic is unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Hey, I just want to say thank you, ladies, for having me up real fast, and I just want to say salute, and it's everything that Rubber Duck said. And one thing I want to say today, what I saw from the commander was receipts. See, when he I see a guy that stand on his word, same language, same construct. He's a construction. He said it back when he was on the Oprah. So yes, and I may not, but I think I'll do a win. And we standing on what we know. As a 55-year-old, thanks, Duck, for being that guy. And last thing, the warden, the principal. One thing about me, and when coming from where I come from, I respect the warden and I respected my principal. And I love the fact that Trump you can go to the principal office and you can be cool with the principal. Hey, sit down. I got this guy. This guy's all right. He's not in trouble. Hey, give him a little standards. So you can go talk to the principal. And I would love to see the commander go into elementary schools and just surprise the kids as the principal. That's the kind of guy you get. And last thing, mock. Yes, the mock dance. It's like when we was kids, we did the Little Rascal mock dance. And that's for another day. When we put some wave under our chins, that's mock. So when Trump does the nano, the 1, 2, the YM, it's the mock, brother. And this lets you
You
know you
get that,
character
man. You
going
get
down.
that, don't you? Man, that's good, man.
Hey, brother, I'm from LA, man, and I seen this movie every day. And I come from a social order where we working together as a circle. We know how to form a circle and get it done. So, so yeah, brother, I know exactly what you were saying. Absolutely. So, like I said, man, I saw today what the commander laid down. He's showing receipts. He's getting these dudes out of here. And salute to guys that understand military movements and how guys move like Marines. Salute. So yeah, man, the mock dance, YMCA. I love it, Jen. Thanks for having me. I'm gonna drop back down and let you guys keep it spinning.
Oh, you're good. You can stay up here, Reg. Thank you for being here, sweetie. Thank you.
Oh,
Always great to hear you.
okay.
All right, let's see. I think it was Yilo and then Grizzly. And then anybody else that has requested a mic, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand so I know you have a question. So go ahead, Yilo.
Well, thank you everyone to giving me a chance to speak. I would like to say that the anxious mind, the sleeping minds can't see the light. There's so much going on around us. What do you think if there's a layer in front of our eyes, if that's removed? And the same like the signals which we getting from the wi-fi is the telecommunication signal, the radio waves, and they all if they remove for some special people, they can the excess of everything come in front of them very easily. Like I'm getting it right. Like who is doing it, who is a part of it, who is controlling it? Just want to know. Thank you.
I think you're right. If I heard the question though, you're saying that basically what we talked about earlier with, with all of the technology that surrounds us, together with how they use the technology, digital, Wi-Fi, all of these signals. The fact I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't know that we as human beings, we're used as antenna. The signals that they use and that they send around, they penetrate us. We have we have our aura. It's a biofield. I know that there's a couple of people that talk about it extensively. I don't know how it works, but I believe it's real. I don't understand how they are able to get inside if they do, but if they were able to, and you said that, um, and you said it was true, I wouldn't be surprised. As far as, because you'll hear people rail against, well, it's a technocracy and blah, blah, blah. And, our friend Patriot Storm says all the time, and he's right, it's been a technocracy probably for some time, probably when they first launched the internet, with the plan in mind of activating, because we know now everything has been planned up till now and through now. I'm certain that the internet was designed to coincide, um, with the Patriot Act being enabled. Because you kind of can't. One is kind of useless without the other in terms of if you're going to be evil and eavesdrop. The fact that everything that we have now is quote unquote smart, and connected to the cloud. I believe that we're connected to the cloud. Are they able to fuck with our consciousness and stuff like that? If you told me it was real, I would believe it, but you'd have to explain to me how it works. That's something I wouldn't believe at first hunch. So, how do I navigate around it? I don't give a shit if they know what's in my head, because I know that there's nothing that I can physically do about it now. Can I detach from everything completely? You know what I mean? And go find a patch of sand or something down here in Florida and just do it all raw and real? Absolutely. But where are the rest of us going to go? You know what I mean? And am I in a place right now to do that? You know what I mean? It's like you say, oh, we're going to have a baby. Oh, we will when we're ready, when we have enough money. Bullshit. It's going to happen. It's going to happen when it happens. So since that's something that's not escapable right now, you know what I mean? And since I firmly believe, I can only speak from my perspective about the plan that I understand to be underway. It was never really discussed, that this would come to harm us. In fact, as I understand it, and the way we took it was the 5G towers, was the extension of it. As I understand it, the 5G towers that were, mostly rendered useless, or in some parts of the world, were actually torn down and set on fire. And when the signal flipped, Kofefi, I believe that whatever powers those 5G signals had were in fact reversed. Why? Because it makes sense with the rest of everything else that had to be reversed. And it makes sense to me. So that's how I explain it. And I believe that goes the same thing for chemtrails, whatever, chemtrails. I know they're real. I've seen them. We all seen them, but I also know that, chemtrails are chemicals. And I also know that chemicals are not clear. Some are. I know cloud seeding was always real. That was never a big deal. When I worked in aerospace and defense, some of those contracts were, little putter planes that would go up, plant some seeds, and, all of a sudden the guy's got an orange crop that he can have. So I get that. I get that. We're talking about other stuff. You know what I mean? So, and that's why, so when it comes to, what is it that you're going to believe, most of that makes sense to me. I don't believe that chemtrails can be white. So when I look up in the sky and I see beautiful clouds and a beautiful blue sky, I know we can get deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm trying to keep this at what I recall as normal. And even that's temporary, because who knows what the fuck normal is going to be after this whole thing, and who knows how old we're going to be when it comes to pass. If their gig was supposed to be up in 2030, I would wager, what we have a marker coming up, right? 250-year anniversary. I don't. There's no prediction, but that's a line. That's a marker, right? We have a midterm election coming up. That's a marker. Something, whatever. Then you got 2030. So whatever. I personally believe it won't take that long. And if you ask me why, I would tell you because this news cycle, it's 24/7 earth-ending headlines. 24/7 earth-ending. It just can't go on that long, you know. So,
Yep.
and one thing we get to do from the perspective we have is, if you can and you should, jump off the wheel for a little bit. Go stick your feet in the sand or the dirt. And just kind of chill out away from it a little bit, knowing that when you come back, you'll know right where to go.
Thank you, Rubberduck. All right, Grizzly Jones, do you still have a question? You had your hand up. Did it get
Well,
tired?
yeah, well, no, it was more of a caveat onto what Duck was talking about. I used to work in radio in the 90s, and it was all AP network news. That was it. That's all you had. And if you didn't read AP network news, you were fined for not doing it. So there was no opinion. There was none of that. I mean, unless you were some shock jock, which came about later, but it all came from that. And then the Smith-Mundt Act was repealed, and we know now they can just lie blatantly and tell us whatever they want. So I think it comes down to that as getting that put back in place. I think they're running it as the Charlie Kirk thing, but also like how is what's happening in Virginia going to affect things, because that's becoming a hotbed really quickly. They're not listening to anything the Republicans are requesting or what they had promised to us or anything. So I think that might jump into play with the usage of the martial law. Not saying martial law, but the troops and all that stuff.
Insurrection.
Yeah, so I think that's
Well,
going to bring all that in.
well, you
Everything's
know
going to
what?
have to be
Real
seen to
quickly,
come to a
hang on a
stop.
second. Hang on real quickly, Rubberduck. So he's talking about Virginia, but add into that now New Jersey, what we're seeing happening over there. So go for it, Rubberduck.
No, I would just say keep an eye on the locations, including DC. I would just focus on the locations where Trump has sent the National Guard in place. He did that a while ago for almost a year now, right? Right after he got in. And don't forget, soon after that, he also activated the Marines Reserves component to back them, specifically in support of local authorities. So basically, the National Guard is there on Trump's orders. It'll be on Trump's orders. That's because the National Guard and the Marines, there's no filter in between them and the President of the United States, the Commander in Chief. So he'll have that, and I'm sure there'll be nothing knee jerk, right? I'm sure Minnesota is an example up to this point. Like you said, New Jersey, Virginia, all these other places, California. I mean, look at what the hell Biff said over in the California governor. So everything is going to be seen to come to a halt, and it's going to be like an us versus them. Where and then there's really us, meaning regular normal people, right? Not actors out on the street or the liberal crazy minds that all fled the insane asylums that were let out. They really were let out. And there's a good million of them that were let out, and at some point I suppose they'll be put in, but they'll either do what needed to be done for free or for very, very cheap.
Thank you, Rubber Duck. And real quickly, I want to give you guys a little bit of encouragement here and some hope, because I know many people reach out to me and they're confused or whatever because they get caught up in the noise. But there, when Trump flew into Davos at the airport, his motorcade is insane, everybody. Like, you tell me what president or I don't know, king, whatever we've seen within the time that I've been on this earth, you've been on this earth, has that kind of motorcade. I'm going to go ahead and post it on my feed again, but it was insane, everybody. So that should tell you everything you need to know who really is in control, you guys. So have no fear. See that, get excited. And with that right there, that just, like I said, tells you everything you need to know and really tells you who's in control. Okay, with that, Karen Hess, you requested a mic. I don't see your hand up, but do you have a question for Rubber Duck?
Oh yeah. Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead. Go ahead.
Hey,
Yes, ma'am.
hey, Rubber Duck.
Hola.
Hey, I've been following you for a while. I have two questions. Number one, these people that you speak of, the governors, people in high profile, mayors, whatever. Do you think that they are NPCs or clones or you know, do, do you think that they're cloned or like I said, just put in those positions? And then the other,
100%, yes.
And their
yeah,
As a
babies.
short answer, yeah.
And
I
their
don't
babies.
if
yeah,
they're clones. I
but
mean, God, I don't. We could sit here and I would love to do a space about clones because I believe in them.
yeah,
I believe that they're real. But
hmm,
for the safety of the educational purposes of whatever the fuck, I just say, you know what, they could be. Look at the masks, the technology. I would say
yeah,
much more of it is probably CGI because remember, we don't see
right,
these people in real life. We only see them on the television. And
yes,
just think of some of
absolutely,
the movies we've seen over our life. They don't make movies anymore because Hollywood's been dead for 8 years. But I'm just saying, think back,
well,
to all the shit that they've done that was all a green screen. I believe that
yeah,
green screens have played a big part during the Biden years. But listen, we can go so far as to say that
right,
Biden was like it was Optimus, the Optimus robot wearing a Biden skin suit because that's the way the fucking thing walked. You know what I mean? When it would go, you know what I mean?
right. I just don't know how far back they go, but as long as I've been following Q and stuff, it just seems like it goes pretty far back that these people were either replaced or some. Anyway, when I tried to
I
tell,
don't believe Trump could have ever come in unless it was done.
right,
Because you know why? If you were going to plan like this, and if your plans got to a point, because all this, the whole operation, like they had theirs, this whole operation, the whole point of it was to come out publicly. But they know they couldn't
right,
do it right away, so they put a little bit out there on the internet with us, knowing that we'd blab about it and run around with our heads cut off, which we did. But that alone, remember, they only need people to smell a rat. The TV can do the rest. But the only person, in my personal opinion, the only person that's irreplaceable, when I say irreplaceable, remember, my perspective is the plan, the Q drops, everything that I've learned. The only politician that I will listen to is Trump. You'll never see
of
me on
course,
my feed rooting for anyone else. I don't root for the. I believe that his whole cabinet, as we
right.
speak, is replaceable.
I do too. I've tried to share with people, keep an open mind. He could, he exposes people. This is the way he puts them front and center, in his cabinet, and they don't want to
And
hear
that's why somebody like you, you'll never be surprised because you'll be like, and listen, God forbid if at the end of this, this whole big plan, if there's some big dramatic end where Trump has to fall on some sword, well
yeah,
then that was part of the plan. Did Q say that there's plans beyond Trump? Yes, they did. So, but they didn't tell us what they were. So at some point,
yeah,
Trump's here to serve a purpose. He's king of the world or whatever you want to call
hmm,
him to get shit straight because he had the right personality to do it on a television show. He went through his
hmm,
literal apprenticeship on TV called The
hmm,
Apprentice right up to 2015. So,
right.
it is what it is. You got a great outlook on it though. So I think you'll be just fine.
I'm not worried about myself. I'm 74, and I have to agree with the gentleman that spoke first. Most of the people that I know, my community, or even out of state, whatever, they they are just not following this. They're if, unless it comes across in an EBS or a great solar flash that awakens. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's they've got to take over the TV. There's so many people that just rely on their news from the TV.
Look at
You
it
know,
this way. When the announcement came out, when the initial announcement came out for COVID that said we're going to shut down, I don't think everybody was watching TV when that happened. I'm sure there was a bunch of people that, had to wait and come home, and find out
hmm,
about it, And
hmm,
when you got home and you said, "Hey, we got to shut it. They're locking everything down." What are you
yeah.
fucking talking about? Oh, really? Turn the TV on. Boom, they're woken up.
Okay, that's what it's going to take. Yeah, that's what it's going to take.
Isn't it
Thank
weird?
you, Karen.
Isn't it weird how simple and but yet
Yeah.
hysterical? We know how it's going to get. They're going to be freaked, but once they get it, it's going to be just like that. 9/11, that was different. People come home and those people saw a plane, this one didn't. That's a different dichotomy. With this, it'll be listen, if you got a shot and you're one of those people sitting in an old plaid chair, there's a good chance at some point CNN will catch you up to speed.
Thank you, thank you, Rubberduck. Thank you, Carol Dixon. All right, or Carol Dixon. Thank you, Karen Hess. Carol Dixon, you requested a mic. Do you have a question? I don't see your hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you,
You're
Rubber
welcome.
Duck. I've been following you for a long, long time, you and Field. And my question is, we know that there's a lot of um, people that are actors and they're brought forth to show us something. What is your take, Rubber Duck, on JD Vance?
I don't trust them at all. But remember, I don't trust any of them. But that's about. I mean, I can go in any direction, but personally, for a variety of reasons, it just doesn't feel right. I can even go with that, but something doesn't feel permanent. And if they say he's going to be the next who the fuck talks about being the next president when it's less than a year that you're the vice president? Fuck that. So, I don't know. I got my reservations. You know what I mean? Do I think that he's the future of everything? If he is, he's not been dressed up that way just yet. You know what I mean? So I always take the approach. We'll see what happens. But as for up to and including right now, no, no, I don't trust any of them. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Because each of them have shit that you can dig up, and you don't know. And we all know that the shit you could probably dig up is something that would put one of us in jail. You know what I mean? The only person that I have any confidence in that, didn't, fuck with kids or drink fucking adrenochrome is Trump. And not for nothing, that's my bar. So there's a lot of, you got to be a real fucking elite fucking evil scumbag, to cross my bar. And right now there's only one guy that I could literally say with a degree of certainty, because he's the most fucking vetted man on earth, that I don't believe he had anything to do with it. And I believe if humanity ever had a chance to go against these people, it wasn't going to be an overnight thing, and it would have had to have started with a deception, because we were being deceived. What's the Mark Twain line? It's harder to tell somebody that you've been, I don't know what the line is, but it's something about being lied to versus being woken up. It's harder to wake people up telling them that they've been lied to their whole lives than it is to lie to somebody in the first place and get them to believe it. And that's true. That's also cognitive dissonance. But we're to a point right now where, I don't know that I'm waking people up anymore. I think I'm just providing commentary on shit that happens, and where I see relevance, I kind of try to lock things up, and hopefully people they're starting to pick up on it. You know what I mean? My kids certainly do. I never sat them down and went over the Q drops with them. They still live here. They're 20, what is it, 26 and 28 now. I'm sorry, 25 and 27 now. But they listen to me here like a friggin' crazy guy in the porch, as I sit here and talk to my birds and you guys.
Thank you, Rubber Duck. Yeah, we always get to hear your little birds in the background. They're quiet today. Okay, let's see. John, go ahead. Your mic is unmuted. And then after that, go ahead, Tina Q.
Thanks, Rubber Duck. I'm really curious on your take of this. So, thinking from the perspective of like 50s, 60s time frame in tech. So, it's pretty well known, or open, I should say, to the public. AI was kind of coined around 56. Whatever purpose it served at then. Okay, it's an interesting time frame because of Reagan. So Ronald Reagan was president of SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild. Okay, so now I'm thinking, well, damn, what if we're the script, right? So I don't know if you're tracking kind of where I'm going with this, but like, do you think there's any truth or validity to two things? And it's one question, but two parts. So the first part of it would be like, if our lives are being portrayed in that manner because they're all actors, because they even call themselves acting as, right? So let's just take them at their word and say they're all actors. And great movies make great scripts and great actors, right? So what would be the reason then for, number one, the complete like disregard for truth whatsoever on the side of, let's say, legacy media? Because that doesn't always apply. And if it does, I'm sure as hell blind to some of the stuff because I'm like, I can't even relate to some of the things, right? Like it's like the math isn't mathing, right? So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that, but also then to second that, it's like, okay, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and they're just blind and this is the best way to wake them up. So where does the tier stop then? If that makes sense. So like how far does this go or is that just the future?
You mean, is this just a perpetual thing that will go on together forever unless we unplug?
Yeah, unless we are the ones to actually make the corrective measures or unplug, right? Exactly.
Well, that's the only control that we have over this. And what that truly does represent is choice, because, and at the same time, we're hopelessly addicted, and if it's not to this, it's to something else, you know what I mean? And many of us have had that certain type of lifestyles, but it's not too far outside the realm to believe, see, I don't believe the actors I don't believe that quote unquote actors, NPCs, you could put them in the same group if you want. I believe that some people get paid to be NPCs, you know what I mean, in real life. I don't believe that malls were always filled with that many people shopping. I always believed there was something weird about malls. And come to find out, I believe I was right. I believe that all malls were built for trafficking and that the businesses were fronts, because, how many fucking boxes of Tic Tacs or baseball cards can you sell to pay the over exorbitant rent for the prices that there were there? So that never rung true either, So if that's the case, then, well, what are you saying? Well, what I'm saying is, are you saying are you saying that there were paid actors walking around the mall? Why not? Why not? So if they're okay, because you're only thinking about it from your perspective. But what if you're one of those people running a front company that I know existed in hundreds, thousands of these malls, right? What's your job? Your job is to do what you do and not get caught. So how are you going to do that? And what if and then you got Macy's there? There's your front, right? There's your credibility, and then you have all these other little stores and these little boutique islands in the middle and stuff like that. And where are they from? They never, they're always from somewhere. They don't really, but it's not here, So I always, and I believe same thing goes for sports stadiums, and you don't believe me. Look what they put in sports stadiums during the lockdowns. You want to talk about a mock? They put fucking cardboard people in the stands. I believe professional sports was created for two things: to have a place where trafficking can happen, and also for energy harvesting, which I believe that they're into, which is why stadiums are built that way. Professional performers talk about that all the time, singers and, people that perform in front of huge crowds, bands and stuff. They talk about the energy. Trump talks about it, the energy you get from a crowd. So I believe that's energy harvesting as well, because that's what these people know about. We don't know about that. They didn't fucking teach us. We had to fucking crack some code or find a whistleblower, sadly. And I believe that,
Rabbit holes,
yeah,
those
exactly.
deep dark
Rabbit holes.
rabbit holes.
Rabbit holes. But yeah, I think it extends to the answer to your question is I think it extends into real life. In 1912, there were over 300,000 contract actors that made up Central Casting, CAA, and it was commandeered and merged into our government as a government agency that was funded. So how many people do you think they have now around the world? Global access. I'm sure there's millions of them. You know what I mean? How many people that I just mentioned to you earlier? People that are like carnival actors, people that you just see lingering around. You used to see them at clubs at like 4 a.m, but there's so many of them. I think you merge them all together. I believe there's a class of people out there that are not living the lives that we do. And if you ever did anything, I used to do a lot of people watching when I was younger, malls or on the beach, just I'm very interested in behavior, people, what they do, where they're going. I wonder what this person, where they're going to go when they leave. Why are they doing, because I'm there doing something. So I always had that kind of will for curiosity, so I know that if I am, then there must be lots of people out there. But if you're not one of those people that do that, you're not automatically one of them. You could just be a wallflower. We used to have those too. But I think we're old enough, we get to the age where we could tell that some of them are not for real. And if it follows the rest of the way this world has been towards us, then I believe that why wouldn't they have infiltrated our real lives? If they infiltrated Hollywood, if they infiltrated big medicine, if they infiltrated the school systems, the churches, the synagogue, everything, if they infiltrated and took over everything, then why should it not be complete and total? And why should I sound like a complete nutbag for saying it? You know what I mean? So, because you may win parts of the debate, but I'll win the big one. You know,
Because you are a nut job. Just kidding, Rubber
you
Duck.
got to
You know
be
I love
one to
you.
know one, not for nothing.
Exactly. You gotta live
You
it,
know I'm
right?
kidding.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And real quick, I just want to add, I can definitely attest to what you're saying. I've experienced that firsthand when I was 14 in a mall. So, I was definitely pawing myself. So there's 100% truth to it. Even
And
the
my
Gerber
mall, when
bait.
I was growing up, I grew up in Jersey, so my mall was before the Mall of Minnesota was built, the Mall of America. At that time, the Garden State Plaza was the biggest mall on earth. And we used to go underneath there. They had those whatever, like 2, 3 levels underneath the earth. We used to run around and what did you just say? How old were you? Were same thing. You play hide and seek. You want to explore. Now you can't do that. You'll get fucking. They'll take you. It's just a different world. But part of me believes that it was there for us to see because we had the willful curiosity to go and seek that out. That adventurous spirit. And I believe that the what we talk about, which I believe is Satan incarnate, which is the flat black screens. They weren't always flat and they weren't always black. They used to, the shape of the screens has something to do with how they're able to manipulate us, the lines of color and signal. Everybody wanted to get high def so I could see fucking a fucking a teardrop of sweat on Shaquille O'Neal's chin when he's taking a free throw. That's what I had to get. We had to have it. We got to get the phones. It's got to be, it's got to be 1G, 2G, 3G. Everybody doesn't realize every G was a generation, and each generation was designed to get their devices closer to being inside of us. First they started with the computer, then the computer, crept onto your hand and a phone, and then it crept onto your wrist and a watch, and then they took over the TV. So it's everything you see, hear, touch, learn about. What am I going to buy? How am I going to feel? It's everything, everything.
All by design, right, Rubber Duck? All
100%.
by
And we're
design.
going through the unfucking phase. When the history books are written about us during these times, the good, the bad, and the ugly, these will be the times of, in the Bible, what do they call it? The sorrows, the tears, then there's the awakening, you know what I mean? And when everybody wakes up and learns about, what the COVID was really about, what Trump's presidency really was, why those stones in Georgia, the guide stones, were brought down the way that they were. You can't be a normal thinking, living person, human, plugged into reality, and not see the explosion of the Georgia guide stones as a sign. And what's so fucking wrong about a sign? We used to see signs all over. We used to want to surround our. Oh, I have this friend. She sees signs. We used to love to surround ourselves with people like that because we always thought they were plugged in. Now they're fucking Q-tards. Fuck you. Sorry, Jen.
No, 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 no. Listen, hey, I love it. I love your transparency. I love your honesty. I'm never gonna censor you for that. Be you. Did that answer your question, John? John?
100%. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you.
Of course, thank you. All right, Miss Tina Q, and then
Hi,
Jersey. How you
hi
doing on time, Rubber?
everybody.
Hey, hang on a second, Tina Q. How you
Sure.
doing on time, Rubber Duck?
I'm
Rubber
still
Duck.
good. I'm good.
All
This
right,
is
go
fun.
ahead,
I'm
Tina
good.
Q.
Hi, before I say what I was going to say, I hope everybody's excited to go see the movie Melania. I think it's going to be, I just want to see her. And I just hope I've only been to one movie in 5 years, and that was Out of the Shadows. So I'm excited. So with that, I just want to say that I was listening, Rubber Duck and Jenny, to some of my favorite podcasters today. I don't know, did you guys get to watch Trump today with all the comms?
Yes, it was great.
I was at work. I did
Oh, it's
not.
unbelievable today. So what I wanted
So
to
I know you weren't listening to me as your favorite podcaster because I was at work. Kidding, kidding.
you're what? Listen, I've been to you since you were on Telegram, so I could say I'm a OG.
Yes, you are.
Listening to you back in the day on Telegram. So what I want to say is, they were hitting. Trump was hitting, and Savino, he's been posting the last couple of days, they were hitting deltas to the T. And one of the things I wanted to say is what the deltas that he was saying is about what would happen if they would take the tariffs away, and what he said with national security. I don't know the exact verbiage he was saying, but one of the reporters asked him, and he said, "You'll find out." So what got me stoked is with him hitting all these deltas, and Michael Flynn saying a lot of comms, and listen to Trump today. Last week, I don't know if you know, last week's phone outage was the fourth time that's happened, but it's never lasted for 10 hours. So they were saying, and I believe it wholeheartedly with all the comms Trump was giving today in Savino. I think a scare event is in our near future, and he was telling us that today from the podium, and it's going to be interested to see. Uh, I think that was a test, the 10-hour test to see how people react with all the phones down. I think we're real close.
Also, don't forget the very next day, Twitter X was brought down.
Yeah. So I think I think we're very close to the scare event. What it may be, and I guess that's us being awake is here for the other people to see what happens. But um, and with all the election fraud coming out, and what Trump is pointing out more so than anything, and I think this is how Obama and Biden are going to go down. If you listen to John Solomon, is from letting all these migrants cross the border, treason and crimes against humanity. I think maybe that's what will take them down. And it would be easier for people to accept that. I don't know if we'll ever know the real truth about everything. And I also, I follow Lynn Wood, and he says every lie will be revealed. I don't know how close we're going to get to that, but I think we're closer now than we ever have been. And then also him saying today, which I'm surprised no reporters asked him what a dividend is, because he brought up the $2,000 dividend today for the first time in the last couple weeks. So I just think we're getting close to something. I'm praying and I'm hoping, and with Pam Bondi being in Minneapolis, and Christy home, and all these subpoenas, I think we're gearing up to a big storm. So that's all I wanted to say, and God bless.
I say, let's fucking go. Go ahead, Jersey. Thank you, Tina Q.
Tina, that's so exciting. I love it. Well, wait a minute. Like, there's supposed to be, on that Q post, it says the word scare, and then it's separate from event. So, who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Kind of Jersey, like it says, when people they say 10 days of darkness. It says 10 days darkness.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so people like to kind of like, misconstrue things. So, yeah, I think reading those, we got to be very careful and be
I
mindful.
mean, the first time Q said 10 days darkness, it was actually 10 days darn-cess. And the word was spelt
Yes.
D as in David, A-R, N as in Nancy, Kess, which is to say the N and the K were flipped. And at the time that post came out, there was a book there was a book that was linked to that was called 10 Days of Darn Cass, and it was available on Amazon. It's no longer available on Amazon because the link has been scrubbed. However, it is in my feed, and you can go to the Wayback Machine and find it also. Because
What's it about?
it
Rubber
was about
duck?
child trafficking.
Oh, there you go.
It was
Okay.
about child trafficking, but I also think that the whole 10 days of darkness thing could mean a lot of different things. That could mean a communication outage. That could have meant, at some point was, Trump's Twitter taken down for a certain period of time. Just like 11.3, 11.6, multiple meanings exist for that. You know what I mean? 11.3 is when the Inspector General's report came back that first mentioned Hillary Clinton, and it wasn't crimes against humanity, it was a crimes against children, together with Wiener's laptop. And that is the crux of where this whole, everybody thought it was about corruption or Russia. This whole thing will circle back to be about the children. You'll sadly how they're going to roll out, what the occult part of this is, but that's going to come out. And unless the television broadcast signal gets to a place where it can report truth in a way that people will believe on every channel, I don't believe that's going to happen. But you might say, well, how do you get around that then? Well, here's how you get around it. When people talk about together what they see on TV and what they see on the internet and what they see in real life together at the same time as an experience, like when Kennedy was shot and everybody saw it on TV to happen, when Charlie Kirk was shot. Yes, I get it. That was an operation, but it when everybody sees something, whenever, in other words, in order for this thing to work, everybody has to see the tree fall in the woods, and everybody together has to agree that when the tree falls in the woods, it does fucking make a noise.
Thank you, Rubber Duck. All right, Haas 17. Now you had your hand up. Do you have a question for Rubber Duck?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Yeah, of
Jenny and Carmen, for
course.
hosting the space. Hey, it's Hoss. You said it right. Don't screw it up. You did great. Uh, the reason I want to thank y'all is because honestly, I get to enjoy Rubber Duck when he's on other spaces, but I really like when he cooks. So I am a married man, Duck, but I got to tell you, I love you, brother. It is awesome to hear you cook. And I can't tell you how much I love your 40,000 foot view and how you put it together.
The only way to
I'm
fly.
Italian. Yeah, bro. And look, my family told me a long time ago they took the INI off our name because Italians couldn't get jobs way back in the day when we first came over here. So I love your personality. I agree with everything you say. And I just wanted to come up and say thank you all. Thank you to all of y'all because when he's in other spaces, it's it's cordoned off to certain subjects. And so I love hearing him free spirit himself. And so I just wanted to say thank you.
Well,
God bless you, brother.
let's just say, and I know he doesn't like to commit, but he'll be coming on the Revival of America podcast more often. He doesn't
Amen.
have a choice.
A little bit more, maybe. We like to keep things fresh and crispy.
Hey, Jenny.
You are crispy. Yeah, go ahead, Jersey.
So I didn't get to say what I wanted to say, but I wanted to say hello, Jenny. Hi, Dak. Hey,
Hi,
Carmen.
Jersey.
How are you guys? Um,
Love you, girl.
you know what? I just wanted to say, Doc, I really hate Doc. Um, I think that was very brave of you to tell your 9/11 story because I just don't, we let it like go in one ear and out the other, but stay in the book.
I don't think it's that we let it. I think that the emotional scar that they put into our brain with the digital acts that they left, and they didn't tell us how or anyone how to cure it, because right after 9/11, that's when they rolled out the PTSDs. It was coincidentally when, the Iraqi veterans were suffering. I got wrapped up in that crowd, and I still take
Oh
those
my God.
PTSDs to this day, but it is, listen, it is what it is. But you know what? I'm not the only one. And you mark my words, and it's recorded. There will come a time where there are thousands, and I mean thousands of stories like mine from all over downtown. You know what I mean? And remember,
Yeah, but yours is
our
special
phones
too.
did have video back then. It was shitty, but our phones did have video back then. And at that time, the Twin Towers were one of the five most videoed, photographed thing on Earth. So don't think for a minute the same 5 to 7 views that are all manipulated and doctored, right? There's two versions that are out currently that are not, right? And I'll tell you, as a graphic designer for 30 years, you cannot take planes out of a video, but you can add them.
Thank you, Rubber Duck. All right, Red Arrow, go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Hey, Doc, just wanted to say hi.
What's up,
Fun to
Rap?
hear you on here with Jenny. And I just want everybody to know when I first woke up, Duck really helped me a lot. I was trying to figure out what was going on. This was right around the election, probably a little before that.
You were a
And
very quick study, Rap. Let me tell you something, brother. God bless you. You've come so far, man. I'm telling you.
well, I still have a lot to learn, but it's good to just keep talking with each other. These relationships are important, and we help each other. I thought it might be interesting for everybody to hear about your involvement with Field McConnell just briefly, and if you could sort of lay out what the timeline of that was relative to the Q drops.
And real
That
quickly,
was 2000. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, for real quick before Rubber Duck goes into that, Field McConnell, if you know who he is, and Rubber Duck will go into it. He is on my show every Monday, everybody, over on my Telegram page. So, and if you need to find the replay, it's over on my Rumble or all the other places that I said to you guys at the beginning of the show. But go ahead, Rubber Duck.
And if you don't know who Lieutenant Colonel, Field M. McConnell is, and his story, and his beautiful wife Denise, and just the whole thing. Just go to my feed, start there, learn about his story. He was the first, and that's why I was so drawn to him. He was the very first 9/11 whistleblower, and Field McConnell was the first one to discover what Boeing had invented before 9/11, which was the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot technology, which was lost during one of the two Malaysia MS 360 or MS. I forget what are they, 70 and 360, right? Or
370,
370,
MS
370 and
37,
60.
MH 370.
And there's a bunch
Yes,
of
MH.
there's
Yes,
a bunch of
MH
screw. Go
37.
ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I was just gonna say it's MH370, and then isn't there a 17 or something like that? MH317 or something.
Not sure what
Yeah,
it
I
is,
think.
but one of those two, I believe it was MH360, one of the two airplanes that went down. What went down in that plane were the three people that actually had the patent to some of that technology, and so that was a whole mind bending experience. And I know there's a couple of screwballs out there that talk about like fucking magic orbs that Disney sent up into space to surround the plane and take it into another dimension to whatever. That's absolute horseshit. Anyway, but so that's what initially. But Field used to have a show, and he had a private chat. It was called a fireside chat. It was like a server, and he would operate this chat, and lots of it operated much in the way that 4chan did. You got in there, and you kind of talk back and forth, you exchange memes, a lot of graphics guys, a lot of meme guys, a lot of researchers, lots of politicians, lots of Southerners, lots of ex-military people, and a few current military people at the time. And what Field used to do is he had a show called Able Danger, ABEL Danger, and it later changed into morphed into a couple other things. But for sake of the argument, Able Danger, and that's where you do a YouTube show, and he would actually broadcast it on, oh god, I forget what the server was, because when they whacked him, they didn't just take Field down, they took his whole live stream network, they took everything, because Field McConnell had put so much. Field McConnell has a personalized license plate, and that personalized license plate reads Q minus, the word Q, capital MINUS. And that was registered to Field in Wisconsin many years before the first Q drop. My personal feelings about Field, he has a name, it's the fourth, he goes by the fourth Marine, and among other things. He was a commercial airline pilot, very well known. He flew a fighter jet in the Marines, and he was a very, very, very well respected pilot. And he started that show with he had a partner. They had a falling out, an English guy. I never got too into him. that much. I don't know if he's a good guy, bad guy, but I didn't get. Field was who I was pretty much attracted to at the time, and he had this. He would do this live broadcast, and he would have guests on, and I'm talking about, I would say, early 2018, maybe early 2018. Up through when he was arrested, and he was doing broadcasts from, allegedly, wink, wink, from his jail cell, and where they allowed him a phone, and he would read scripture, and we would all listen. Some of you guys are here, you were there too, and we would listen to Field read scripture, and we'd cry together because none of us knew what the fuck was happening on earth. We knew about the plan, but we didn't know what the hell was going on for a certain period of time. None of us did, including you guys. You may have forgotten, but we'll get back there. But Field taught us a lot, and I had a name that I went by. If you were in Field's chat, you got a name, and mine was Wallace. I'm a blood Wallace. I go back to the Wallace clan, way, 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 way back in Scotland. And and that's not where you send your DNA in. I have the actual documents and the lineage and the provenance and all that shit. So I went by Agent Wallace. They shortened it to W because you only got a letter if you were in there. So I was Agent W for a couple of years, and all we did, Field would have his live stream, very low tech. Guests would call in via Skype. I remember when Juan O'Savin, his first public introduction, I believe, I want to say, was early 2018, one of those early broadcasts, and what would happen is as Juan O'Savin would be talking, if anybody knows him, knows how he talks, and he's fucking brilliant. He's got access. He's an insider. Nobody knows, where we all have names of who he is. We've seen pictures. I've seen him at a Trump rally down here in South Florida when he was here. I think it was 2 years ago. He came with Roseanne Barr. And but it doesn't matter who he is. It's not the important question. Everyone asks the wrong question. But what's important is he would tell his long-winded historical stories. Like Saturnella, the season, the season of the Upside Down, and all these different stories he would tell us. And he would go on for hours, sometimes 2 to 4 hours at a time. And you'd hear that old Skype noise coming in, boing, ba boing, ba boing, and it would ring in, and he would take the phone and say, "Hold on 1 second," because you would see Field McConnell in his office in Wisconsin, doing a broadcast on YouTube, and we were all in the chat, but everything was live, and they kind of went together. So if you wanted to listen to Field's show, you could watch him. If you wanted to take part in it, you would open up the chat. Otherwise, it was private just to Field, and the people that went in there. So when Field would do interviews, we would do documentary memes, or we would just draw up memes and put them in the chat, and then Field would use them, and he'd put them out on his social media, and we'd all put them out on our social media, and they were always in support of what we were talking about, whatever the guest was talking about. He would have military friends over. Hell, he used to have guests in there. You know what I mean? And at one point in time, he had someone very special inside that office there that we saw. And it was a wonderful time to be alive. Field used to throw out comms, like little private communications and stuff, because one thing that Field respected more than anything, as part of the Q plan, was there were never any insiders, quote unquote, as it were, that were part of the Q operation. And Juan O'Savin will freely tell you that although he's aware of it, and he believes we all, believe we know who's a part of it. Nobody does, you know. But that doesn't suffice to say that there's still plenty of information outside of the Q drops that you can learn. I mean, that was just a catalyst to, to open up your mind and willful curiosity and all that stuff. I mean, like I said, where else can you go on the internet, and talk about, talk about what's really happening in the world and be right about it, and then talk about esoteric stuff that goes back thousands of years and still be right about it. You know what I mean? So those are some of the things that we used to talk about. Mostly was military stuff, but that's kind of how I came to know Field. We followed him every step of the way. I was friends with Denise. We exchanged emails at the very end, because I had a slightly growing following at the time, and I went by a different name. But and that was our job. Our agent's job were to get it all out. And then the rubber duck came along, and that's history.
Thank you for that, Rubber Duck. All right, everybody, how you doing on time, Rubber Duck?
As
We
long
are
as there's
right at.
hands, I'll stay. If there's not, and I see a lot of familiar faces here too. So until I'm told dinner's ready, I'll stay for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't see any hands. So,
Hey,
but I am going to go fix myself some dinner. Go ahead, Red Arrow.
hey, I just wanted to add one thing that Duck probably wouldn't say about himself, but for those of you who follow Entheos, they did a Wall of Heroes post at one point, and it's got a bunch of numbers in it that spell out Cyber Command, and then they're talking about different people that they recruited or have helped with the effort. And in that list of people is RD. That's Rubber Duck. So I just think that's really cool.
Anthony was a close friend of mine, particularly the Pinky. And when I was thrown off social media completely, in the dark for like a year and a half, and then from Truth Social, I was targeted there too. And Auntie brought me back. We communicated on the side, which was pretty cool. And she brought me back up.
I didn't know that. That's awesome, Rubber Duck. So everybody give Rubber Duck a follow. And tomorrow, come back here. We're gonna have Alpha Warrior at 2:15 Mountain Standard Time, and then I'm gonna have two other shows over on my Telegram page. Captain Kyle, 5:30 Central Standard Time, and then Brain IQ with Rick Anson, all natural healing options. So with that, everybody, thank you guys for being here, Rubber Duck. I'm gonna get you on more often because clearly you have a voice that needs to be heard for sure. And you give a lot of great information. I tell you this all the time. And you help people kind of understand what maybe they don't understand, right? Like the movie part of it, the everything isn't what you've seen, or a lot of this stuff is going on behind the scenes, that kind of stuff. So, Rub Duck, I love you. I appreciate you. Carmen, thank you, sweetie, for helping out here. Dr. James, great to see you. Silent, I see you came up here at the last minute. Sucka. MV, I see you. Adam, Jersey, all of you all, Stellar, Julie, Turtle, love you all. God
We'll
bless
see
you.
you around
And
here later too.
yeah, well, I was just gonna say that you'll see us here on probably Carmen Space here in a couple hours. I don't know when you open it up, Carmen.
About 10 o'clock
All right, 10 o'clock
What's
Eastern
that? The
time.
Carmen's at
Eastern.
10.
10
All right,
Eastern.
10 Eastern, everybody. And again, like I said, follow everybody, all the speakers up here that you like, and anybody here in this space. Then that way you know, turn on notifications when they have a space, or, if they post something. So with that, everybody, God bless you. And again, come back and join the Revival of America. You got a little taste of it if you haven't been with me before. Now you know what it's about. It's not the typical space, not the typical chat. It's about you, the people. It's about my guests and your voices. Because remember, everybody, it's your voices, your journey that's going to help shape this new world that we're coming into. God bless you all. Love you. And we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.